But
live.
if you want to join in,
Okay. But what am I hearing in the background?
Me. I need to mute it.
Oh, it's the echo of us.
It's the echo of us.
I was like,
got it running.
I thought it was coming from my computer, and I was like,
it's coming on yours.
It is?
Breath, just relax and let go. So we'll breathe in.
It's I don't know why it's showing up like that. All right, give me 1 second. I'm just going to close out of the Chrome completely.
I think we're good.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
You got it.
That was really weird. If this doesn't happen at least one time, Velentaya, then it's not a day. We have to have at least one.
I told you, electronics always mess up, right? Electronics are always messing up for me. So
always.
Totally fine. I think between the three of us, the energy is probably like, woo.
I know, it's like step away. I actually had a client that said, Linda, stop leaning in towards your phone because every time you do, the picture goes away. You were video zooming.
Interesting.
And I was using my phone and I would get excited and I'd leave. She said, would you stop doing that, please? So now we are live. So everybody,
we are live. Apparently, you hit the stream, so we've been chattering. I'll have to edit that.
Hi, everybody.
We've been live for 1:15. I didn't realize you hit the YouTube live on your side. Okay, usually that's my job.
Finding it, I said, I'll do it, Kat.
Okay. Oh, that's hysterical.
Hey, Nicole. Welcome.
Welcome to another Third Eye Salon show. That is hysterical. All right. Well, officially, we are here. We are started. And I'll try to stop blushing. But let's welcome my lovely co-host, best friend, psychic, conscious channeler. She's really also a psychic medium and also conscious business coach, Linda Coulter-Burge.
Oh, stop. Stop. Hi, everyone.
And then we have the lovely Velentaya Reece with us. Hey, thank you so much for being with us, Velentaya. I appreciate your flexibility with all of our craziness here.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to meet your audience and hang out with you guys.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. So we'll do our little housekeeping notes here first. We have Velentaya's information down below in the video description. I also have a couple of videos there with Karen Swain, our buddy Karen Swain. So just some really good content there. And also below there is our Facebook group. So you can join our Facebook group and for Third Eye Salon. And then we also have a way, if you love the shows and you want to help us financially, we've got a link down there for coffee. I always want to call it Ko-Fi, but it's coffee, and you can buy us a coffee, and that always helps us. And today in our live show, we don't have our beautiful friend Jillian, our engagement gal. She's off doing what she's got to do, so we won't be attending to live stream comments.
I will be.
Oh, Linda said she'll do.
I'm going to be. I'm already. So.
All right. God bless Linda for multitasking. That is wonderful. Okay. So I think that's all the notes I need to cover on that. And like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, always and forever. Okay. So I will read Velentaya's bio to give you a sense of her, if you're not familiar with who she is. So we will do that, and then we're going to hop into our questions because there's so much good, yummy stuff to explore with Velentaya today. So Velentaya Reece is a vibrational linguist who channels the language of light, the language of the Akash, and written codes to heal and expand an individual beyond the current timeline of disharmony to one which is in alignment with the soul blueprint. A trance channel for the Sirians, Andromedans, and other groups, she is an open vehicle for many dimensions and consciousnesses. Transmitting the frequency of divine love and sacred light information from source, her work aims to balance the physical, mental, and emotional bodies and reconnect humanity to source consciousness and to their divine gifts and purpose. Velentaya has used light and sound as a tool for shifting human consciousness throughout her many incarnations in the multi-galactic universe. The Sirians, serving as her gatekeepers, assist in preparing the vibrations, integrating the energies within the space. Every transmission is a multi-sensory experience as these benevolent beings utilize her structure, consciousness, and vocal cords to interact in real time. The result is a dimensional shift that offers a new experience, pattern, or change in vibration for the individual, as well as activating alternate and more harmonious timeline potentials. Which I really want to talk about that timeline potentials. With a Bachelor of Arts in Communication, Velentaya's career spans 27 years. She started when she was 5. I don't know how she did it, but in the television industry, where her work has been regularly showcased on major networks and other media outlets. A visual effects artist and award-winning broadcast designer, she blends light, color, and sound to create energetic shifts in audiences. This inspires her work today as she uses the same elements to promote physical healing and vibrational shifts within her clients. That was just a really well-written bio, I'm going to say.
Oh, thank you so much.
Tell you were in communications.
What's that?
I said, I can tell she was in communications. And
Right.
better to be the envoy than someone who has been in communications for all this time.
It's so amazing how that works, right? How our human job branches out and directly relates to our spiritual purpose. And
yeah. And let's just kind of give people, speaking of that, I want to kind of give people a little background. Again, you can go to Karen's interviews with Velentaya because they pull us apart a bit more. But I like to nutshell like the intro bit, the origin story, as it were.
mm-hmm.
And so we can get into like all the juicy questions and what's going on. So I'm going to kind of iterate what I understand in terms of your history, Velentaya, and then you can pop in and correct me.
Sure,
or expand on the points that are you feel need to be like maybe punched up a little bit more. So Velentaya was working in the TV industry and very sought after, working crazy hours, getting called away on vacations to go back to work, like just really dedicated to her career and doing really well with it, obviously well sought after, but living a very, what we call, 3D lifestyle in terms of stressed out, fear, anxiety, motivated from a place of achieving and motivated from a place of, external self-worth, trying to get it from the outside versus understanding it from the inside, which was just causing her a lot of, anxiety and pain and, all those things that come with that place of disconnection. And I don't remember exactly what happened. There's a little bit of there's more there to dig into in terms of what happened at Genesis point, but you went into 4 months of basically bliss where you just started to download these light languages and just start to speak them randomly. They would just pop out and you'd have to start timing them, being like, okay, I just had a session of light language for an hour that came through me, couldn't stop it. I've got another hour, maybe 2 hours that I can go out into public before I have to come back home and let it pour through me once again. And now you've like integrated it and it's acclimated, but it was quite a journey of being somebody who was just really stressed and balled up into somebody who was like, oh, and speaking all these light languages over these 4 months, it accelerated your personal journey. So all this healing you went through, you didn't have to go through years of therapy. It was condensed and cleared out through this bulk download of light languages over the 4 months. How did I do?
You did it better than I do it, actually. That was amazing. Yes, that's exactly what happened. That little moment in between two different realities of the fear-based reality and moving into that divine love reality was the catalyst for all of it. And I didn't have any teachers back then. It was me. I wasn't on the path at all. And it was a series of events that made me look at myself and stop searching externally. And, it was right around Christmas time, lost the boyfriend, dog got a bad health diagnosis, lost my career. That was my identity. So I then had to start looking within, and I started with self-love. And I think that's a big one for everyone, because when we're raising in frequency and we're on this ascension journey, you open up through compassion. And that's how you start accessing all your gifts, your soul purpose, moving into alignment. And we have to start with ourselves. We can't just show compassion for others, because that's a lot easier to do than to actually bring in that self-love, because that can be very painful when we start looking at the inner child and all of those things that we've put up walls around and blocks around. And so I started with that. And I've told this before, but I think it's important to say that I started with mirror work, and looking in the mirror for 5 minutes a day and saying, I love you, without bursting into tears, was the hardest thing. And I couldn't do it. And it took me about 2 weeks in of doing it every day, 3 times a day, before I could do it without crying. But it transformed me in so many ways. And it's difficult to do when you're in that place that I was in, when you're just so stressed out and so disconnected, because when we're in that fear, we're blocking ourselves off from source. And so there's such a wide gap. And so when I started getting all those downloads and speaking all of these languages, it was just clearing, because it was happening all day long. And with that, a huge release, tons of tears, but, tears because I was releasing all this density that was a part of me for all this time. So there is a sense of loss, right? You're losing pieces of you that felt comfortable, even though they're not serving you. We can still have comfort in things that don't serve us. So I felt different, but there was also this joyous crying of remembering this piece of me that I had forgotten, and something that was so familiar. And so moving back into alignment and getting reintroduced to this long lost, divine, beautiful friend that I had been longing to become reacquainted with. So.
Yeah. And that shift of going from being, I kind of want to give people a little bit of background too, because we have our pre-show talk that I like to do whenever I can with our guests. And so Velentaya was telling me, this is only her second incarnation. So in terms of being on this planet. And so there's, to me, in my psychology of that, the gap is not as wide, because there's not as much distortion that you have to work through. And there's not like these layers and layers and layers of DNA programming that are as dense versus somebody who's been here for eons, right?
Right.
Who's got it layered. So that's why I think in part, that's why you were able to have this 4 months of bliss, because it was literally filling yourself up with all this light codes, and everything that didn't resonate with the light codes just had to that's got to go. That's got to go. Like if it's not resonating in this frequency, it's going to have to work its way out. And it came out through the tears versus having to have life trauma and hit the wall 5 times in order to figure out that you want to stop doing that. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And I don't want to say that it was a perfect and super easy journey, because it wasn't, and even now things still come up, but I can look at them now because I've cleared so much. I can look at them with a higher perspective and understand what's actually happening, as opposed to just being in victim mode about it and not feeling like I don't have the power to change it when I know that I do. But, even for me, sometimes it doesn't happen quickly. Sometimes it takes me 6 months to say, okay, I've had enough of this experience and I don't want it anymore. So let me actually now move out of fear and let's really do this now, and let's clear the energy. It has happened to me, and it will continue to happen, I'm sure. Things come up for all of us, but I did get a quick clearing. I was able to transform quickly because I think of the density that I was holding was just enough to help me experience what I need to experience before it was time to step into my mission. I didn't have a lot of that human karma.
Yeah. And it's like having the human experience is what allows us to be able to it's what allows you to be relatable to us, right? Like if you just came in and you were just resonating, there's a disconnect because how do I get from here to there? You don't have a path to show me because you're already in it.
Right.
So being weighed down with that density is an important part because it makes you empathetic and empathic to what other people are going through. Even if you've cleared a lot of it, you still have a heart resonance for what they're going through.
Of course. And even, I think it was like 2 years ago, I had a terrible year where I had to clear some stuff, and I never get sick. I just don't get sick. I hadn't been sick in years. And it started with something that was kind of like what people are getting sick with right now. Coughing and coughing and coughing for 4 months straight. And it was because I met a person that put a lot of fear into me, and I wasn't dealing with the fear, and I was giving my power away. But at that time, I didn't realize that. And I was in victim mode, and this coughing just was going on and on and on, that one day I woke up and I had herniated 3 discs in my back from all the coughing. It was terrible coughing. And so I was in excruciating pain for 8 months. I was in such a place of fear and disconnection, and I had allowed that to happen, to clear it and to really go through the steps. And like, we always have a choice in how long we want to stay in a particular frequency. And I chose quite a long time. It took me 8 months to actually deal with it. I had gone to doctors. I had 2 epidurals, and it wasn't helping. I was still in extreme pain. And I knew, I knew that it was fear. I knew what I needed to do, but I just wasn't ready to do it. And eventually I was at that place where I said, okay, enough. I don't want to experience this anymore. Show me what I need to do. Talk to your guides, talk to your higher self, and just show me what I need to do. Show me how I can transform this so that I don't have to experience it anymore. And of course, I spoke light language and then started taking the steps, disconnecting from that person in a very peaceful, nice way, in a very loving way, and standing in my power. And that was a huge part. I instantly felt like, 75% better. And then self-care, going to different spiritual places to feel the energy and just let that help me heal. And that was it. So, things come up for all of us, and there's no wrong way and there's no right way. It just is whatever you choose and how you choose to move through it.
Yeah. And I think the key piece, and Miss Linda's going to hop into the question after I say this. One of the key pieces, also everyone, we're going to do a light language session with Velentaya at the end. So stay tuned because she's going to gift us with that. Is that what you're going to say, Miss Linda?
Partially.
Okay.
Yeah. Partially.
So I think one of the core pieces is that it's always about coming back into your power, right? It's always about coming out of the victim piece and coming into your power. And which isn't to say that if you're suffering from an ailment, you're not doing your work and you're being a victim. Like there's no shame ever.
Right.
Everyone's personal journey is different. Someone may have taken on an affliction for their life, a lifelong affliction on purpose, because that's what the soul wanted to do that lifetime. There's no right or wrong. It's just, I want to bookmark that understanding that
right.
Oftentimes it is our personal empowerment that is the key to shifting every single thing in our life and walking out of our victim story. All right, Miss Linda.
One of the things that you said was really powerful, that you, when you were having this shift in your life, that you decided to embrace it, and that you decided to, in your 4 months, you really didn't have a choice. It was coming. Yeah. But afterwards, you could have turned around and gone back to normal, right? You could have gone back to what was familiar, what was safe.
Yeah.
And that was a point of decision. Or you could have as I did with my business when it imploded, and it was my wake-up call. I decided that I'll just self-flog myself for a while. Because I need to be punished a little bit more, because that was, my programming that had to come out. And so we have these choices afterwards. And I think for me, it was, okay, I am now a business coach. I can sit there and talk to people about this journey of the ups and downs and let them know that there's this choice that they can make and how they deal with their lives. And you decided to embrace it. And the other part of that is that it's not just a one-time journey.
Right.
But you can, when you revisit it, shift that to make it so much less of a curve like this to, one where you are able to ride those and come back more quickly if you choose. You can recognize the lessons and recognize where you are. That's
Exactly.
wonderful.
Yeah. And that's what happens as we start to expand. We start to have a higher perspective and awareness around how to look at what's happening in our reality and why we're choosing to have that experience and explore a particular frequency. And so even now, we're on this ascension journey. You have the choice as to where do you want to stay? Where do you want to vibrate? And it's, of course, we all want to vibrate higher, but sometimes we dip back into the other side for whatever reason it is. And it's always okay. I think for the most part, though, I know where I want to stay. I know where I want to be. But sometimes things come up. Again, always an opportunity to clear. But then it's how do you clear it? Do you jump back in and play the game and let it happen one more time? Or do you clear it with a higher perspective and do something different, see it with different eyes and take certain different action in order to do that? I can give an example. So I have a person in my life who started the 3D game with me. And I thought, oh boy, I really want to get in there and get in the last word and do that back and forth because, I know what she's saying is not in alignment. It's like she totally is not seeing my side. Do I jump back in and just play that game? Or do I take a different stance and say, you know what? I just want to clear this. I don't want to do this anymore. So I'm not going to do that behavior because it's just going to keep that cycle going. And so that choice was difficult because I really wanted to do that.
Right.
It's not always easy, even though my higher knowing is going, do you really want to do this again? Do you really? So I made that choice. So it's not always easy. There's always that little voice going, oh, come on, just do it one more time. Just do it one more time. And then, no, I want to be done with it. And so you just have a higher perspective, but it does take a little bit of willpower and, you have to practice, and it's like building a muscle. The more you do it, the easier it becomes because then you see that it shifts the energy and then that experience just stops. And that's what happened.
Yeah, we stop. I mean, that's the thing. There's so much I want to talk to you about. I really want to get into the whole 5D timeline, or what we call 5D timeline, called Ascension Path, all the many names it has. That and how using the light language aligns you to your most optimal timeline. I want to get into that. But also, I really want to talk about like your connection with the Andromedans, with the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, the Sirians. I want to know, like, how do you know it's them? How do they show up for you? What is your experience when you connect to those guides? Because there's some people who are like, those are my guides. And it's like a kind of an amorphous thing. And there are other people who are like, oh, that's Steve. Oh, that's Kuan Yin. Like, like they're able to like really differentiate. I'm wondering, what is your experience in terms of, this is my guide, the Pleiadian, and their name is blah, blah, blah. Like, what is it for you?
So for me, it's a vibration. It's a feeling and which turns into a knowing. I just have the knowing. In the beginning, when it all started, I knew that the Pleiadians were there because, as I had told the story before, they physically put a video on my television that said that they were the Pleiadians. And I'd never seen that video before. I'd never looked at that channel. I had a completely different channel on, and all my electricity went off. And when it came back on, the channel had changed and that was on. So
And this was Barbara Marciniak, right?
Right, right. And so I knew that the Pleiadians were present. And because I was speaking these languages, I could feel that frequency, or what I perceived to be that frequency. And then I just got used to that. And then I would actually sit in meditation to try and figure out the different frequencies. And early on in that point in time, I had just started trying to meditate, and I literally heard a voice, like it was in the room, say Arcturus. And I didn't even know what Arcturus was. That's how out of it I was. I didn't know any of this stuff. And so I thought, did I really hear that? And so I wrote it down and did a quick search after I got the spelling right, and read about the Arcturians. And then I thought, oh, wow, I can't believe I got that right. This is crazy, right? So then through channeled guidance, I had learned that I'd been working with the Arcturians as a child when I had these childhood experiences, that they were actually working with me so that I could keep my DNA crystallized and intact and be able to speak these languages now. So
okay, let's talk about that. Your DNA, keep your DNA crystallized.
well, let me explain. I'm not completely crystallized because I'm still ascending like everyone else, but I had just enough, took in just enough light to have certain strands activated so that I could speak the languages. So as we're moving from carbon to crystal, we're taking in more light. And as you're taking in more light, you're expanding, your frequency is raising. And so light is the language of creator. It's a vibration, it's a frequency. And so as you take in more light, those other strands of DNA, once we move past the carbon strands, which is where you're holding those patterns, those programs, those limiting beliefs, all of that stuff that we take on, all that density to keep us in that fear-based reality, as we start expanding and taking in more light, you start clearing out those strands, and the other strands start to come online. But it's hard to explain because it's like a multi-layered process, right? We're moving into compassion. Our hearts start opening as this happens so that we can clear those strands. We're also raising our consciousness. We're getting new perspectives and new ideas about things. We're looking at things from a higher way, in a new empowered way. So all of these things are happening at once. But when you're vibrating higher, you're taking in more light, and you start to activate those other strands, which hold like your divine gifts, your superpowers, if you want to call them that, your clairs, your ability to self-heal, everything in aligned with the creative ability of creator, we start turning those on. And so it's a process of unfolding and moving into alignment. And it just happens over time as you do the work, as you make frequency choices, and as you do your clearings.
Okay, let's go a little granular, just a little granular on the bit about moving from carbon to crystal, because this is something that intuitively my body goes, yes, that's right. It's like there's certain things that I understand intuitively, so I'll hear it, and it's like there's a yes within my being, right? And so this whole concept of moving from carbon-based beings into crystalline beings, and I know I just want you to do your best, because I know that it's hard to put language to some of these things.
Right.
But I want to pull that apart, because what I'm getting is that light is also the language of crystal. And we have crystal within our pituitary gland. Like that, there's a crystal core in our pituitary gland, which gets calcified. But it's actually, we have crystal in our body. So it's like so what I'm getting is that there's crystal aspects already in our body, but just like carbon is compressed until it's a diamond, like, coal is carbon, right? It's compressed, it's made into a diamond. That's a crystalline structure. That's kind of the analogy that I'm grasping at. And I'm wondering if there's anything that you can speak to in terms of your understanding.
The way I understand, and this is just my inner knowing, is that So like you said, carbon is very dense. And I think carbon is in almost everything. It's part of the earth and we are part of the earth. We've taken on the density and the frequency of the old paradigm, that dense timeline. And so we were matching that density. But as the earth is shifting and the frequency is changing, we too are shifting and changing. And so we are matching the new frequency. And as that happens, like I said, we're taking in more light. And so now the cells are expanding and changing. The particles are changing and vibrating differently. And so it's more in alignment with the divine within, with that spark of the creator within. And so all those divine aspects that start to come online as a part of that are because of that vibrational change within. So we can call it crystallized. I don't know the actual science of why, but that's the best way I can understand it, is that it's the light of creator that is activating within us to bring up that positive information within us so that we can experience that frequency and that vibration, because we have both within us. We have positive timeline information and the denser information. And so we're choosing what we tap into. And a lot of that is just because of the density that we've been carrying. But as we start to expand, we start to clear that. And now we can choose different. We are always choosing frequency exploration. So like I talked about before with my experience, it's just what does the soul need to experience to then remember? And what is the ego gonna let you clear? Are you gonna keep holding on to the old stuff? Because, the ego doesn't like change. The ego likes what's easy and comfortable. And sometimes clearing that stuff, you have to go through some things which can be fearful for many, because change brings up a lot of issues for some people. It's hard to step into the unknown when we don't know what that looks like. And so when we're coming from a place of fear and not able to say, I trust and know that I'm always going to be guided to what I need or what I think I need, or even something better. And if I'm open to that, then it's a little bit easier to make that shift.
Yeah, and acknowledging our attachments to being powerless, acknowledging our attachments to playing small. Like, there are benefits to that. There's something that we get from that, and being able to acknowledge that without judgment, so we can say, am I ready to let go now? Am I ready to upgrade? Because if you're not, it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Because you're choosing to stay there for maybe there's just something else you aren't ready to see yet. And so
want to learn.
Right.
Yeah. And so let's move into this conversation about timelines and light language, and how okay, because we had a great pre-show talk, and I was like, oh, I should be recording this too. But like, what my understanding is, and I'll kind of like regurgitate it out and let you hop in and clarify, is that within our DNA structure, there are it's like these are codes of experiences and beliefs and the way that the body functions. And some of them are anchored in what we call 3D density. And so they tend to loop, because 3D density is a limited experience. So they tend to loop up, and you get a little bit better. Sometimes you go down, but that's like the 3D DNA experience. This 5D or higher experience, where we're able to experience our superpowers, as you're saying, who we really are in the divine expression of ourselves without blocking it. That is activated with a light language. And it's like these dormant strands that are from our galactic family are activated through the light language, and therefore the denser ones start to become, they get reinvented is what I get. I get that the denser lower ones get cleared and then become aligned to the higher functioning ones. And again, I'm not a scientist or a doctor. Does that make sense, or how would you say that?
I'm not a scientist or a doctor either. And I think I'm going to explain it the long way and the short way. I think the short way is if you just think of it as you're moving through your earth journey, you're experiencing different frequencies, and everything is a choice in frequency. And when we are really stuck in that third dimensional paradigm, like I was before I had my big aha moment, that frequency, that dense frequency that I was experiencing, all aligned to fear, stress, worry, doubt, concern, sickness, that lower density was just totally lost my thought, but that was a frequency that I chose to explore. So that was in my DNA. We have that information in our DNA. We also have the positive, higher frequency information in the DNA. So it's always a choice of what are you tapping into. I don't want people to think that, some people think, well, oh, I'm not going to be able to have that experience unless I do X, Y, and Z first. No, you have that within you. It's about moving into alignment with it. It's about making that choice to explore a higher frequency. And sometimes that's difficult. So we have both in our DNA. And when we experience these vibrational tones, which are in alignment to Creator, they are carrying sacred light information from Source, sacred geometries, all of this cosmic high vibe light encoded frequencies. And so when that enters the field, you start vibrating differently. And the easiest way to explain that is everybody is different depending on where they are vibrationally. So when I have group offerings, everybody is listening to the same transmissions. And what's amazing is that one person may heal a physical ailment, like all of a sudden their back doesn't hurt anymore, where this other person who's listening to the same exact thing might just start feeling differently about stuff. They want to drink more water naturally. They're not having to force themselves to do it, or they're making healthier food choices naturally because they're more in tune with their body. They're able to listen easier. They're more in alignment with that. Another person might start speaking light language. So, and I've had that with people, those are all three experiences that I've seen happen. And so each one of them took in that information differently based on where they were vibrationally and what the higher self chose to explore, what the higher self decided they needed to transform first. And so within if we want to look at it within the DNA, we could look at it as it's either clearing that density, just completely clearing that experience from the DNA, or it can also just align you to a different timeline that's opposite of that experience. And maybe we don't have to clear it. We can just go beyond it. And that is something that the higher self works out within the body. I have nothing to do with it. It's just based on where that person would be vibrating, what kind of access there is to those other strands of DNA. Have they done a lot of clearing? So it's easier. They're already holding a lot more light. That's the way I understand it.
Well, this is good. Let's also talk about, and again, I'm putting you on the spot with these questions, but these are things I want to pull apart. What is your definition of a timeline? Like, how do timelines work? Because again, it's like, I have my understanding, but it's really, could I articulate it? Well, this is a good chance to try to do that. What do timelines look like? And just to kind of back up a little bit, like right now, there's a lot of discussion in our communities about this bifurcation of, the people who are kind of heading toward destruction and they're going to go into, war and calamity versus the ones who are like, I'm just not going to engage in that. I'm going to focus on anchoring light codes, light language, 5D reality, whatever that is for you. And so there's a bifurcation in timelines, and at some point they just won't see each other anymore because they're just at different densities. That's like one of my understandings about timelines. What is your understanding with timelines, Velentaya, and how shifting your frequency aligns you to that? Like, what is it? How would you say timelines work? It's just like a conundrum in my brain.
I think everybody might have a different explanation for timelines, but the way I look at it and what resonates with me is that any vibration we're holding is a timeline we're experiencing, and it's based on choice and frequency. So when I talked about that back issue that I had for those 8 months, that I was in a very low frequency. I was in fear. And so my outer reality was a reflection of that fear that I was holding inside, that frequency that I was holding. And so I was seeing reflected back to me, not a very fun year. I was in pain. I was in a lot of mental turmoil because of the pain. I wasn't having much fun. I wasn't able to walk very much. And so I was in a dense, lower frequency timeline. That's the way I look at it. It's not to say I can't have conversations with people who were experiencing a higher vibe. Maybe you want to look at it as a 5D timeline. Of course, we can still interact. It's just a different vibration that I'm holding in any moment. And so it's more the way I see it as frequency and what is coming into your reality based on that frequency you're holding. And that can change in any given moment. So that's why I say everything for me is based on frequency and what frequency I choose, because I know that that will reflect back to me the reality that I'm experiencing. And so I guess if we can look at what's going on right now, where we have a distinct timeline split, right? Because we're dealing with that old energy, that fear-based reality, and this new energy, what people like to call as the ascension timeline or the golden age, that heaven on earth, all of that. And so we're at this place where we are creating that. And so this is where people in this community understand that. And so it's not to say we can't look at what's going on, but we don't have to get caught up in the drama if we don't want to. We can still look at that and hold a higher frequency and say, I understand that, but I'm ready to move beyond that. So I'm going to hold my frequency and I'm going to focus on what I want to create for my reality. And so I can make those choices that are in alignment with that. I can treat my body well, do my meditations. When I am watching that stuff, see it from a higher perspective and just see that it's fear coming to the surface to clear, and try not to get caught up into the dramas of it. And it's not easy all the time, right? It's not easy when you see something, you say, oh my gosh, like, let's be done with this. Please see this. You want other people to see it, but it's all in everybody's own divine time. But I think the point is that we have to make a choice. I think it's going to become very clear where it's going to be this way or that way, and what are you choosing for you, and then making that choice and holding that stance, and doing that by knowing what you know in your heart and what you've learned throughout the journey, and trusting in what you know to make those choices supportive of the reality that you wish to align to.
Miss Linda, hop in.
Yes.
Thank you, Velentaya. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. And I think one of the things that you've brought up a couple of times, one of the things I talk about is being the witness of what's going on for yourself. Being in observation mode is what I call it.
Yeah.
And being able to be in that observation mode of what's going on. So we're not being Pollyannic and ignoring what's going on. It's being in observation and not reaction.
Right.
It's in response, but not reaction.
Right.
And at what level do you want to participate in that? Because it's hard for me personally. It's very hard because I have, my background was business in college and political science and philosophy, so
right.
So, you know, there's this tendency that I do have this integral part of me that's very interested in what's happening. And to be able to be in that place of holding up the mirror or holding up what's going on and saying, can we bring this to a different frequency? Are you really being the light? You know, sometimes I've had to call out and say, are you really being the light worker to myself or to someone else? Saying the things that you're saying, promoting the things that you're promoting, or are we dropping down in that frequency?
Right.
And so I think if we can consciously, again, it's the observation of consciously making those choices.
Right.
It's not like I don't see the timelines as being, we're going to be in these two different realities. We are in the same reality.
Right.
It also doesn't mean that bad things aren't going to happen to
Right.
you. Like you don't get to have a free ride because you
Exactly. I agree.
How you respond to it.
Right. I mean, I just think it's the same as what we've always experienced. We can hold a higher frequency while being amongst people who are not. But I think it's just coming to the surface in a greater way now because more people are coming out of the old paradigm. They're saying, I don't want this anymore. And so they might not understand why, but they're starting to wake up out of that hypnotized state. And so now you will see clearer. You are going to see, because it is a dualistic timeline with light and dark and good and bad and this and that and whatever. And so people are going to now be able to consciously make the choices, but it's important to make those choices from a place of love and not from a place of fear. That's the other thing. Like, why are we choosing a certain experience? Is it through a place of love and trust, or is it aligned to that old frequency that we're trying to move out of?
Yeah.
Right. I was just going to say, and adding to that, all of the rage and anger that we're seeing right now. Rage and anger is separate, secondary emotion. The core emotion to that is fear.
Yeah.
And so recognizing that all the rage and everything that we're seeing right now is because of that fear.
Right. So we can look at what is going on and have compassion for people who are expressing rage and anger, because we can see it with that higher perspective and say that, well, all this fear is coming up within these beings, and this is an expression of that fear. And we can, and I you know, sometimes it's a little hard sometimes to do that, right? We constantly checking in and looking at it with that higher perspective. And that is what we're moving into as people are clearing the layers and clearing the layers. And some people in the beginning might not make that choice of, again, it's like service to self or service to others. And so those are the dualistic timelines. And so you might not make that choice in the beginning, but you can always shift. You can always make it eventually. And that's the thing. We're still going to all exist in one melting pot. It's just what my reality will look like might be very different from someone who made the old choice. That's the difference.
Yeah. I feel like I kind of want to like piggyback on what Linda was saying, because it's about being aware of how you're showing up to what's happening, because I think there's a lot of there's a desire. I have the desire. I've had to like confront it with myself of just like blocking out the drama in the world. And there's blocking out, that might be one extreme. There's getting right into the mix of it. That's another extreme. Like, what is my role? What is my role? You know? And during my day-to-day job, I can't get into the details of it because it's like, I'm not legally allowed to talk about the details of it, but I work with a specific state that is doing pandemic assistance for those people who haven't had funds. And a lot of things funds just didn't come through. There were so many, the clunky old system from the 70s wasn't going to be able to withstand this pandemic reaction. And so people who had been requesting assistance for months just never got it. They lost their home, they lost their car, they lost their cell phone. Like everything went into the absolute shitter. And so coming in as somebody who's really empathic and caring and sensitive, it was like I had to figure out what is my role in this. And it became about, I couldn't solve their problems because the system was so broken, which I think is intentional in many ways. But like on a certain level, it's intentional. Others, it's not. But like it was like me just showing up and being a witness to their pain and being like, yeah, that is tough. Like that's really hard. Like I really hear you right now. Like that was some portion of medicine that I could give them, because the system that had ignored them and was causing them to lose absolutely everything in their life because they're dependent on a system. That's our old paradigm, is the system supports me, as opposed to we're interconnected and we support each other. The system supports me. Well, now the system that's really vampiric at its nature is showing its true colors, and you're laying there flailing, not getting the support and help you need. That's my version of it, at least. Right. And here I come in, I can actually witness this. I can do what I can, but I am your ally in this moment. And that provides a certain amount of relief and shift. So for me, I do think there's gonna be a bifurcation where people on the lower, I don't call it lower, who are in the denser timeline, are going to go on and do something else, because I don't think there's two worlds. At a certain level of frequencies, when you raise it a certain density, like those two things vibrationally cannot hang out, coexist. You can do it in 3D. You can have all types of interlays in 3D of dimensions and frequencies, because that's what this density is a gift for. It holds disparate frequencies in one locale. Like that's the whole 3D thing. But once you start to transcend into higher frequencies, those disparate frequencies can't resonate with each other, because this is blue, this is, this is green. They're not going to come together and be that color when they mix. They're going to be their own separate things. Does that make sense? There might be some bleeding edges. Yes, Miss Linda.
I just have a very quick comment from the other cat that's watching.
Oh, Cat, amen. Or amen. I'm not sure, but I know. Yes, Cat. Yes.
The cat wanted you to know that those people are attracting you to help them.
Oh, thank you, Kat. That's lovely.
Yeah. So I know that kind of off tracked us, but
no, well, I got us even more off track. So go ahead and hop in and respond to that. And thank you, Kat, for being with us and interacting.
Or you're attracting them to help you as a healer.
Ooh, insightful. Well, I'm gonna stop talking in a second, I swear. But things have really shifted in my role, where I am now like leading meditation for the agents that I work with, and I'm actually like fronting a self-care and self-awareness movement within the project. And people are like, "Oh, thank God you're leading meditation. Great. Where can I sign up?" So it's like that initial empathic thing has evolved into being able to lead self-care within the project itself. So amen, Kat. I just said amen. Ha, that's funny, it's your last name. Amen, Kat. Amen. All right. Now, Miss Velentaya.
I think that as you were explaining how you're expanding and your role is expanding and your frequency is expanding by moving into that meditation, and other people get to experience that and it ripples out. So because your frequency is raising and you are stepping into that role, those people that you say are dense and you're helping them with everything that they've lost just by interacting with you. You don't even have to be talking about this kind of stuff. Because your frequency is higher, it ripples out and they will feel that in some way that it can be so subtle. It can be so subtle that they may not even realize it. But even if one person all of a sudden looks at the despair that they're in with different eyes, and they can say, you know what, I'd like to try that meditation, or I kind of think that I can help myself in this situation a little bit. Let me see what I can do to help the pain that I'm feeling and to help this situation that I find myself in. And that's the way that it works, that just by you shifting, those that interact with you will shift.
Yeah.
If they choose, on a soul level, if they choose.
If they choose. And there's
Right.
there's just no judgment if someone doesn't. And, we use these words denser and lower, higher, and it's those always have these values associated to them, right? But everything comes from love. Everything will return to love. So regardless of where someone goes, whatever timeline they choose, they are still source energy, and they still have as much love coming to them as the rest of us.
Right. And I think too, an easier way, maybe, to look at it would be if we can look at it and say, as souls, we chose to have a particular experience here. And some of us chose to only explore density because we thought that might be fun. And others wanted to explore moving through the process. And that's a more empowering way to look at it. It's definitely looking at it from a higher perspective. If I were to tell someone who was suffering in pain this, well, of course I wouldn't say that. But as you start to wake up, you understand that. So, there is no wrong. The soul probably thought, oh, wow, this would be so much fun to go play that game. You know what I mean? Like, how amazing. I have to keep going up to level 200 in the game and I just can't get past it. Where's the instructions to get past it? That's fun. The ego's like, oh, geez, I just want to be comfortable. But the soul is like, let's play.
Yeah, that's definitely a higher perspective in from the soul. Yeah, Linda?
Yeah, there's another part of this too, that being in that observation mode, one of the keys that I use for myself as a kind of a red flag for me is when I want to label something. Because as soon as you label it, you stop interacting. You have stopped learning. I have stopped learning. I really, when we want to label the other, it's creating this separateness that is an illusion,
right?
And removing us from that higher frequency.
Exactly, I agree.
I wanted to ask you, Velentaya, what the different, because whenever I tune into like your, I don't know if this is your oversoul, not your higher self, whatever that may be, because I know that you are you said this in your bio in so many words, that like you are a channel, but for these light codes, but also a harmonizer and a blender. Like you blend them out. And that's the whole thing, is that it's like, oh, the Arcturians are giving me this, the Pleiadians are giving me this person's, their being is requesting this overlay of frequencies, which I will come through, this light language will come through. It's this, but then it shifts into another light language. Now it's a blending of these two light languages. Who, in your experience, what do the different galactic families that you associate, that you're connected to, what are the different languages they give you? What does a Pleiadian light language do versus an Arcturian light language versus a Sirian light language? Like, do they have different intentions, or what would you say?
It's all just different frequency. And so when they're blending together, because they come through so quickly, it could be predominantly one with overtones of another, or just everything kind of mixing together as a hybrid frequency. The best way, I guess, to explain it is, because all these different beings are coming through to deliver these different vibrational tones that hold light, because we are multi-dimensional beings, we have multi-dimensional aspects within us. So if I might experience, I don't know, let's say a family line of a certain disease, or it could be, how sometimes there's abundance and it goes down generation through families.
Abundance
and that,
issue.
right. All of that, we're pulling bits and pieces of that experience in this current reality from our multidimensional DNA. And so when we can experience the vibrational tones from all these different dimensions, all these different beings that hold different frequency and vibration, we can actually clear all those layers. So if I were only speaking ninth dimensional Pleiadian frequency, yet that experience was coming from this dimension and that dimension and this reality and that reality, it would only clear a little bit of it. So you're able to clear that information faster because you're receiving those tones from those different frequencies, those different vibrational dimensions and realities and beings.
Like, I'm sorry, Linda. I just want it's like make sure I'm grasping this, and then I'll shut up, but only for a moment. But so it's like, so if I'm going to channel I'm going to listen to you channel, it would only be ninth dimensional Pleiadian. Well, it scrubbed this part, it scrubbed this one part, but I've got all this other stuff beneath it. Oh, here the Arcturian part's able to identify that because it's in relationship to something from that lineage, perhaps on a denser level. So from that denser level, the Arcturians will say, oh, that's ours. Come in, take this light language, clear that, elevate. Oh, Sirians, oh, that part that you're holding is actually from our lineage. You don't need it anymore. We're going to sing into it. We're going to elevate it. Am I grasping that correctly?
Yeah, it's pretty much like that. Like the guides, the beings that are coming through, they're looking at the vibration of not only the individual person, but they'll look at the group. And so, it's kind of a collective energy. So just think of the collective energy of the group or the person, and then all these being coming forth to bring through what is most needed in that moment. And you will store those codes in your field. So maybe the higher self is only accessing a bit of that information at that very moment. But then over time, as you start to attune to the activation of those codes that you received, you start to shift little by little. And for most people, like I said, it's just, it could be an awareness. You start thinking differently, or you just start feeling differently about things. You're shifting, and it can happen over time. For me, it was very quick. But for most people, it's an unfolding, and because you're shifting a little bit by little bit, then you start making naturally these choices that are more in alignment with the higher, in the higher timeline, moving into alignment with your divinity. You just start naturally making these higher frequency choices and living your life that way.
And isn't that much more gentle than being hit by a cosmic 2x4 or 4x8 in the back of the head and being like, not my life is in shambles? It's much more. Isn't it nice that it can be done gently?
Yeah.
Right, Miss Linda?
Yes. So when you were describing getting the frequencies from the different places, I was hearing it's a chord. What you're getting is a chord frequency.
Oh, chord, like a
musical chord.
Yeah.
Getting a chord.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Like the F note is Pleiadian, the A sharp is.
They're all in harmony, creating.
And makes these chords. Not that I'm a musical person, but.
Yeah, that was what I was hearing when you were talking. That's
almost like this. That's beautiful.
The chord.
So I want to talk also, before we get into the actual channeling of the tones and light codes, can you kind of tell people who might be curious about, interested in working with you, what some of your clients have experienced? And again, you can never say what Linda experienced in the light language healing is what Kat experienced, is what somebody else experienced. It's going to be different for different people. But if you could maybe give a little bit of a preview as in terms what's possible from your past experiences.
Sure. So, a lot of times people will have a particular intention. I've told this story before, but it's a good one because it helps you explain how easily you can shift. And I knew someone who had a bad knee. He was limping around New York City for 3 years in excruciating pain. And in New York, you have to walk everywhere. So to be in excruciating pain is not ideal. And so he had gone to conventional doctors, and someone said to him, Velentaya can help you. And he's like, you know what? I don't know what you do. I've never done anything like this, but I believe that you can help me. So let's just do it. And he had that trust because his logical mind didn't understand. He just was told that he could get help. And he was so done with being in pain that he just surrendered to it. And he believed it and he trusted. And I gave him the session and he limped out. And I thought, oh, wow, that's strange. And then I saw him the next day and he was like running laps around the office that we were in. And everyone was like, what did you do? Like, he's like, I didn't do anything. You know, I just like, she helped me. And he shifted because he didn't try to figure out what it meant. He was ready to be done with the old. And he just shifted. So that's one way. You can have something that's easy to recognize like that, like a physical pain. All of a sudden, it doesn't it goes away. I had a client the other day who came into the session with a headache, and after the session, she didn't have a headache anymore. So those are tangible signs that we can see. But then there are other things where you just start moving into alignment with stuff that matches your new frequency. I had a client a while back, several years ago, and she didn't have a job, was in a little bit of fear with that. She had lost her job. And so we had done a series of sessions, and over time, she magnetized this beautiful job that was, they created the position. So it was something that she could do, and no one had done that before, I believe. And then it was like right next door to the place where she sang in a choir weekly. So she didn't have to travel far to get to practice. So things just started falling into alignment. She started shifting where she noticed that, you know, she didn't want to write in her journal every day like she had done for years and years and years. She just wanted to sit outside and be in nature and watch people and watch children play and animals walk by. So just becoming more in tune and being able to listen instead of going, oh, well, I write in my journal every day, I better write in my journal. She was allowing herself naturally to be in flow with what her higher guidance wanted to do. And that was to sit in nature and maybe ground energy and just explore the beauty of what was going on around her instead of being so focused into the routine that she had gotten used to. And so it's always important because, you know, we're constantly getting pulled back and forth. So when you experience the work and you start taking in more light and you start shifting in frequency, the little ego will sometimes say, well, do you really want to? Like, why don't you just meditate later? Or, you know, whatever it is. And so it's about listening to the voice when it comes. And it's usually that first thing. If the voice says, you know what, let's go meditate right now, do that, even though you scheduled it for 6 p.m. We're going to do it now because that's what came in. And so it's about staying in flow. And I know that for myself because I was very strict before all of this. And I had my hours planned that this had to get done at 9 a.m. and this had to get done at 10 a.m. and everything in a little row. And if something interrupted that flow, I would just like go insane. Like, oh my gosh, you know, this person called me and now I'm behind on X, Y, and Z. And now if something happens, I'm able to be like, okay, it's supposed to happen this way. It's supposed to unfold differently than what I had planned or thought. So you just start adjusting.
Yeah, and one of the things I remember us talking about before in our little pre-show chat was that really you're stepping into a different dimension when the light codes come through. Like the light language is like the flame that hits the wick so that you as the being can start to shift and go into the dimensions where this light language exists already. Like this light language already exists in like geometric patterns, in frequency and resonance, and you being the channel, you're really the gatekeeper, allowing that person or group of people to move out of this density and into those other dimensions as they show up and come through you and envelop the person. Would you agree with that, or what would you say?
Okay, so I don't do anything. I just sit here and let whatever is going to come through. So I don't even, I just always intend for everybody to receive what is needed for their highest and greatest transformation. And what happens is, so when channelers are channeling, a lot of times what they are channeling holds a vibration, and so anyone who's experiencing that will be affected by that vibration. It happens naturally. So it's affecting your frequency. And that happens with my work. And the other thing that it does is that the frequencies that are coming through hold a dimension. And so the beings, a lot of people will feel things when they're experiencing the language, and there's no right or wrong way. It just depends on how you experience energy, what you've opened up to, what you've cleared. And so a lot of people will feel physical vibrations, hot, cold, tingling, pressure, whatever it is. These beings step through me and into the space of the people receiving, and it is a dimensional shift. That space is physically vibrating differently, and it's holding a different dimension when that's happening. And so it's activating, or those frequencies are working within the DNA to adjust that dimensional shift. It's like if an 8th dimensional Arcturian steps through, you're receiving an 8th dimensional attunement within. It's a frequency within. That's the best way I can explain it. But it is a shift that occurs within the physical structure. And again, allowing you to move through things quickly if you choose.
Whatever serves your highest good.
Exactly.
All right. Excellent. Yes, Miss Linda?
No, I'm just giving a thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Linda gives her approval. So you're in the clear now, Velentaya. I wanted to go ahead and move into doing this, unless Miss Linda has anything else that you want to say.
I'm thinking we're all excited online here to experience this.
Wonderful. I'm
All
excited too. I'm going to take a sip of coffee.
Oh, I like her mug.
Which has water in it. So
the coffee has water in it. Leave me alone.
Right. I'm choosing that coffee experience for the moment.
Amen. I chose my coffee experience. I know Linda did.
All right. So let's see what comes through. Be open to whatever you're feeling, whatever comes through for you. There's no wrong. If a lot of people find themselves, they start to move their body, move their arms, their legs, allow whatever needs to happen. And we'll just take some breaths and center ourselves. If you want to put your hand on your heart, sometimes that helps to get heart centered, and just breathing into that space in the center of the chest and breathing in love with every breath in through the nose and exhaling through the mouth and releasing. And let it be a big exhale out, and just releasing whatever no longer serves, releasing everything you're ready to let go of. And just bringing in a big deep breath in through the nose and exhaling out through the mouth. And you might want to picture a pet or a baby or something you have so much unconditional love for. And pets and babies are easy. We usually don't have conditions. And just picturing that in the center of your chest and feeling that energy of that beautiful being and having that move through your body. And we're just going to do a quick little grounding where you see this light in the center of the chest, your divine spark get bigger and bigger and brighter with every breath. And you just inhale and exhale at a pace that's right for you. And this light expands out around the body, filling the floor, the ceiling, and the walls. Whatever color of light you see is perfect. And then moving that light from the center of the chest, down the legs, out of the feet, going into the earth, twisting and turning, grounding into Gaia, connecting with the earth frequencies and the earth grid. And then from the chest, moving that light up, 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 out of the crown, shooting through the sky and leaving the earth's atmosphere, spreading out like fireworks through the cosmos, grounding you in both directions. And just continue breathing, relaxing. I connect with the guides and bringing the Pleiadians, the Sirians, my Arcturian family, bringing in the Blessed Mother, the 12 archangels, the ascended masters, teachers, and guides. We just ask to support us in clearing all unseen negative influences. We welcome all entities in love and light. We speak to you all from the Lord God of our being. We tell you all that you are healed and forgiven, lifted and enlightened, filled and surrounded with the Christ light and the Christ love. And we ask the beautiful many to escort you all to your perfect place. You may go in peace. And thanking the guides for that clearing. And asking my Sirian gatekeepers to bring in all the benevolent beings for this transmission, for everyone who interacts with it, moving them to a state of peace and love and joy and their highest alignment, and whatever is needed for them in this very moment. And we thank you in advance. We're so grateful. I baile alu anasa doik dean ana aya dia loa soa niashtado ikamasea la veakono ikita brana sala anso utai kan anjodo yanne se arehetai la vora inza do hitailo undro yamboro ia dora sansi enshendo dru ket di ali anzo zozo ya no ianza yamanete andatutor in sakura o basora isanti shoma mame inja gora inza sea shiro ora ina sola ira ina eno ora ina kete endo unda suya ina e antutu u brahe prohora sondura isikut suitsito ishtagojide ishtagawa vedai velo ula era botara insalu si ashokora piketa badandoti itde ele e hai ora po ai yede ira inza iro o kiamasiro o iro usi idra esti ishtagedere ikendikere ituture bititi ishtevado bon atuna e huka wukatu iro isas du ishi enahtoro ambo biarapi dra etsti ikatutura pasini atudu shutu ekoro de shatododo kerevede du rebea sodoro eside edovuta de divishito kotoro eseve ka yoro ya yorobo yene mere verevo o hikoro hikarabi fisara de shadovera bere royo brapese vorohuko mana me I kotututu iko tikitika fo hiku hiavoro de husa veve vovaro Kera vos dovo babaistovo da banzavo porahika gamba gaibolu yaro uga davosora mikti hikavuku ramai ramastoro piama koro iambastoro kinda du krok yonoro bro Jono sora yanso korek et zu aju Ju punik donamasna namet deleva o yakere. Yara se urumo ika yane se uishi yuisha no ya dubi. Mamu inatuoro vro inastu kromasaine eshine ina mayana. Wamayara zagu. Yene yurus izidra hastu. Yeshuno uri inna nuni aimo. Yeno yasni aworami. Wora yuasidi. Omi anuidala. Yenosui yapi diti forustu. Monanik bo. yo riaki niati zio ro katu. Hui sai kodu saduta. Yeshadari yananikiti damu ninoku yanamotidi oro ikapotukati pi tatatara uti yishata kisalakete yekitalo uka tokato tolepeto topati tando tolo irusio hai yarobuka nay en o Yomomi, yo ya yelea, ui, uram iano, yam meoro. Yeso tro, shuk, it sit sutanzia. Sasotro, Ishansu, Itsansu, Yatis Toto, Stiat, Duika, Yanetu, Yetutu, Yakutrati, Yaramadi Shitakabadi, to the Shitakabadi, to Tapati, Fishakato, Shitakabari, and to Tare, Tanamiti Shitakabidi, to the Bayero, Yetu, Yeshatakabadi, to Bahanyanakati, to dear Patati, Shitakati, Show. Nudity badari about it, but even Chitokobara, you kata, you crappy to Korabi Shikabari, Shikabari, should be it's two. And Aniki, Yanakotoroki, see, ko Iraketi Shikatashtika, Keneshi Tushtashtikashtini Eshtikan Sotia, so suit, shik, suit, suk, shu, ashtakatse, Nashtako Ishtakasnu Kusti, Kishto, Yestu, Shuno Usha, Sushta, Stu. Mere andoro on ro ira bro anzoro o ra da lo ut droba kimo probati brambapate nembro hondora bikiro ai brombapa en la sele neshodro mahayanado yesho susu siambaso sialele ai ora mocasino. Take a big deep breath in. Letting the frequencies integrate as you come back into your body. Coming back into the room. And we're just going to ground again, taking that light in the center of your chest and moving it down the body, down the legs, out of the feet, going back into the ground, connecting to the earth. And then up from the chest, going up, through the crown, soaring through the sky and into the cosmos, connecting to the universal grid. And I thank all the guides that came through today to deliver these frequencies for everyone that will listen to this transmission. I trust that your shifts will be with love and ease and grace and joy, and that your results will be permanent, profound, and so much more than what you could have ever asked for, above and beyond. Know that you are fully supported in this new frequency as you transform and transition. Thanking all the guides again. Thank you. And you can open your eyes when you're ready.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I would love, oh, Linda's glowing. Linda's like glowing right now. Gorgeous. I would love for people who are, who just experienced that to leave your comments below. Let us know what your experiences were, if anything you'd like to share. I mean, this whole thing is about building community and linking arms and linking hearts. So please feel free to interact and let us know what you think. And please feel free to reach out to Velentaya directly. We have our link below. One other quick little favor, and I didn't ask you if I could ask you this, but
yeah.
Would you mind showing us, because when we were doing our pre-show chat, you're like light language, I write it too. Like sometimes I just have to write it out, the light language, because you're just so encoded with it. Would you be willing to share some of it visually with us?
Oh my gosh. My books are in the other room. Do you want me to go get them?
If it's not a burden for you, I would love for you or you know what you could do? Actually, why don't you, how about this? Why don't you take some pictures of it and email it to me, and then I'll post it in the Facebook group.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so if people would like to see images of it, they can join our Facebook group, and that's a great little
Yeah, I'll definitely do that, because so many codes are coming through. Like I was telling you, every surface of like mail, junk mail, even the real mail that I need is like written on, because I'm just grabbing things as I'm hearing like, oh, gotta write codes. And I just have codes everywhere right now. They're constantly coming out.
Oh, it's beautiful. I feel like for you to have like a journal of light codes for people to purchase would be a really great gift for people. Because you're a designer, like you are a transducer and a translator of light, color, sound, frequency. I feel like you could create a journal for people to like go through and experience the light codes in whatever multidimensional way they're able to. That would be a real beautiful gift for you to share.
Yeah, I try to do like the really pretty codes that take a long time to create in Photoshop and Illustrator and all that. And those take a really long time. But then the ones I'm writing around the house are just down and dirty, grabbing a pen or a pencil or whatever I have and just like scribble, scribble, scribble. So they're not as pretty, but they all do the same thing.
Exactly. It's the vibration. And I just think all of
Exactly.
that is a great, you could just be sharing those any way that your guides encourage you to do that. Miss Linda?
So I'm getting a lot of response from people, and lots of emojis, and amazing, wonderful, feeling the frequency, feeling the tingling and the vibration,
Nice.
recognizing words. And what I want to encourage people to do is we all experience that with our eyes closed. And the first time I watched you was experiencing it with my eyes closed. And then I went back and watched you. And you take the mannerisms of, like, from the observation part of me wanting to observe what was going on, you were taking different mannerisms. Your speech patterns change throughout that. Your face takes on different mannerisms. And that's one of the things that I really can appreciate. And yes, there were definitely languages that I sit there and think, not just me, but that there are words that are Native American that pop up in there. And I'm wondering how much of that has transferred long ago into their speech patterns.
Ooh, good question.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting that came through for me. It was like, oh yeah, I know that. Oh yeah. And so it's just a whole cool thought that the influence of language could have been very far back. And there's other languages that popped in. So it's not just them, that our language is based on these other experiences from our past.
Exactly. That makes perfect sense. And so beautiful. I don't watch myself, but others can watch for sure, because I'm also signing, and you are receiving the activation through the signs as well. So people do like to watch it, because I've had other people say, oh, wow, now I can actually see it coming in, which is a whole different experience. But I think it helps our human minds get an aspect of it, because we don't understand so much of it. So if we can physically look at something happening, then it gives us a little bit something to like try and understand or grasp onto.
It's interesting, the signing, because when I've always been told I talk with my hands, right? I couldn't talk if my hands were tied behind my back. But I've noticed when I work with people in sessions that when they're really processing, I don't even realize that I'm doing things with my hands below the camera.
Exactly. Which is amazing, because, not everybody will speak light language, but they will find themselves signing it, dancing it. I know people who do it through movement, writing it. like I do. So there's different ways of expressing it, and you might not even know that that's what you're doing, which I was writing light codes long before I was speaking it. I didn't even know it. I thought I was doodling, but I always needed to have like, oh, I got to write this down. And anytime there was a paper, I was just like writing this stuff. And then later in life, when the languages came about, and then I understood that you could write them too, then I was like, oh my, I've been doing this forever. I've been writing these codes. So it will come out in different expressions.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap us up there. And again, if you will send, whatever you're willing to send, Miss Velentaya, I'll put it on our Facebook group so people can see some of your writings as well. And I just want to thank you, Linda, for being here and always being the co-host with the most. I love you so much. You're just amazing. And thank you, Velentaya, for just being with us in this time, space, and place, and being the conduit of light and grace and beauty that you are.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Linda, as well. And everybody, if you have any reactions to the light language, or just want to tell me that something came up or you had a shift, please reach out to me on Facebook or email or whatever way you feel called to. I'd love to hear. I always love to hear how the work is being experienced from other people.
And we'll have all your information below so people can.
Yep, it's there right now.
And it's in the Facebook. So
okay.
Excellent.
The group,
All
I'd
right.
love for people to share what they feel in the group as well.
Okay, great.
Good. Thank you. And as always, this is a great time to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell, so that way when experiences like this happen that are just multidimensional, really, you don't miss it when it goes live. So, and we'd love to have your connection and community. So all right, thank you again, ladies, and thank you everyone who's watching. Bless you. Be kind to yourself, be kinder to others, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.